Welcome to True Tales, telling your own story. My name is Tellin Tales, and I'm the artistic director of Tellin Tales Theater. Well, if you're watching this video, then you have participated in our story sharing workshop. I created this workshop because I went through a lot of hospital stays and physical therapy when I was a kid. You know, when I was frustrated or lonely, this one particular nurse would tell me stories about her childhood. When she started telling one of her stories, I was transported to her world as a little girl, and everything that was bothering me melted away. Soon, she taught me how to tell my own stories and make them funny and touching at the same time. By telling or writing down my true life stories, I was able to comfort myself. Well, I went on to form my own theater company where I write and tell my own stories on stage. We developed this video to remind you of what you learned in the workshop so that you can continue to create your own stories. Stories help you find your voice. Stories give you a chance to talk the way you do in real life, instead of worrying about things like spelling and grammar and punctuation like you have to do in school. Stories help you connect to your own unique ideas and thoughts on any given situation. Think of this. 10 people could have the same experience and tell the same story a whole different way. By telling your story, you hook into what makes you unique. Shaping your story helps you shape your thoughts and values. Okay, here's an example. Being bullied is painful and makes kids feel sad and embarrassed. But if you tell your story about being bullied and share it with others, you can make your own ending. Telling and sharing gives you back the power of your own voice. Sharing stories helps others who might have been through the same thing. When someone tells a story about something they've been through, it shows others they are not alone. Telling stories helps you write the next chapter of your life. So what are the elements of a story? Character. Characters are the people in your stories. You are a character in your own story. Okay, remember to add details about the characters in your stories. What do they look like? What are they wearing? What do their voices sound like? You can add dialogue to your story to show what types of things that the character says and how they say it. Setting. The setting is the place where your story happens. If your story happens in your grandma's kitchen, give us details about what it looks like, smells like, and the sounds you might hear. For example, instead of just saying, "I'm in my grandma's kitchen," say, "I'm in my grandma's kitchen with the yellow wallpaper and the refrigerator magnets from all the places she and Grandpa visited. It smells like coffee and cinnamon rolls. I can hear the sound of the TV from the next room because my grandpa's watching the baseball game." A story has a beginning, middle, and an end. The beginning is a good place to tell us about the setting and introduce us to the characters in the story. The middle is the heart of the story, where we find out the problem or conflict. Now, the ending is the resolution. Now, I gotta tell you, don't worry about trying to make the perfect ending. Just tell us what happened. Every interesting story has some type of conflict or problem. For example, a boy in one of the Tellin Tales workshops wanted to tell a story about a long airplane ride he took. It was a 13-hour trip to Korea. Now, it was an interesting idea, but he wasn't sure what the actual story was. So he had to figure out what the problem was and how it got solved. Well, The problem was that even though he had brought a movie to watch, the movie was only 90 minutes long. And every time he watched the movie, the flight still wasn't over. He watched the same movie, Minions, 4 or 5 times until finally he arrived and got to see his grandparents, which made the whole long trip worthwhile. Show, don't tell. Okay, here's an example. Instead of saying, he wore weird clothes, show us with your words. He wore a plaid jacket and a striped tie that clashed. Once again, don't forget to add details. They make the story live. If you get stuck, don't worry. Just picture the place where the story happened. Use your 5 senses and write down what you saw, what you heard, what you smelled and tasted and felt when you were in that place. Ask yourself the questions we ask in the hot seat. Remember the hot seat? Who was there? Where were you? What did you do? When did it happen? Answering these questions can help you shape the story. At the end, put a button on the story. The button is the last sentence that ties up the whole story. For example, a boy told a story about playing ball in the yard. His mom told him not to play near his 3-year-old sister. Well, of course he did, and he knocked her over. Well, the button in his story was, and that's why I never play ball near my sister again. A button wraps it all up so we know the story is over. Okay, now you know the elements of a great story. You might say to yourself, but I don't have any interesting stories to tell. That's not true. Everyone has stories to tell. Sometimes you just need a little help drawing them out so you find where the story is. Here are some ideas for helping generate or create new stories from your own life. Ask your parents to tell you something funny or interesting that happened to them when they were kids. See if you can find an old family story, maybe something from your grandparents or even great-grandparents. Can you relate to their story in any way? Does it remind you of something from your own life? Here are some ideas to get you started. The funniest thing that ever happened to me. If I were a superhero, my power would be... The scariest thing that ever happened to me. The person that means the most to me. How about I am so grateful for? I like that one. Remember to add the elements of storytelling, like telling us what the setting was, who you were with. And don't forget to add details like what you were wearing, what season it was, or anything that helps paint a clear picture of what it was like, what was happening to you. Now that you know how to tell a story, you might wonder how you can use your new skill. Well, stories are very versatile. You could tell a story to start a conversation with somebody and follow up by asking other people about their stories. There may be times when it might be great to use your own stories as a subject matter for a writing assignment in school. Imagine that. You can also use stories to make new friends. When kids who don't know you hear your story, they can see what you have in common and may want to know you better. You can also use your story to explain to a younger sibling how you made it through a difficult situation. For example, when my brother was struggling with math, I told him the story about when I got every problem wrong on my math test at his age. After I asked my teacher for extra help, I understood it better and got an A on my next test. My brother didn't feel so alone, and my story gave him the idea to ask for extra help. Telling your stories with detail will also help you with high school papers, college applications, and also in your work as an adult. And if you have to make up a fictional story and you have a hard time getting started, you can start with an event from your own life and see what happens when your made-up characters are put in the same situation. We here at Tellin Tales have included a journal along with this DVD, and you can use your journal to jot down story ideas. Some people like to write out their stories. Other people just like to write a few notes to remind them of their stories so they can tell them out loud. And some people prefer to draw pictures or paste in other artwork inspired by their ideas. Well, you can use your journal in whatever way inspires you. Stories are all around us. A story might be taking shape in your life right now. Look around. The place you are right now be the setting for your next story. The people around you might be the characters you write about. Everything that happens in your life is part of your story. And when you choose to share something that excited you or maybe scared you or delighted you, you're really doing more than just telling the story. You're connecting to the people around you. Who knows? You might even be helping someone else by sharing your story. I've been sharing my stories for years. I love to tell stories, but I also love to hear what other people's stories are. I can't wait to hear yours. Want to learn even more? Check out these resources.